Aloha and welcome to Maui Nonprofit Notes, where each week you'll find us talking story with Maui's nonprofit executive directors and staff to find out how they're working to support those with needs within our community. And by the way, this is Susie's other voice you're hearing today. I picked up one of those bugs that's been going around, and all of a sudden it's Wednesday and there's that bug. So please bear with me. I'm going to have the guests do most of the talking today. I like to think that they do most of the talking every week, but today especially. Anyway, Maui Nonprofit Notes is generously sponsored by Pacific Source. If you're building or remodeling a home, please stop by Pacific Source's Cabinet and Appliance Showroom, located in the Waikapu Bayshard. I'm Susie Tiemann, Executive Director of Lokahi Pacific, and your host for Maui Nonprofit Notes. For those of you who may be listening for the first time to this weekly show, during the hour we share some of the experiences of our nonprofit agencies and just how they are changing lives, changing communities, and creating miracles of hope for those with needs. Today we're going to start off the show talking to Danny Riggs, who is with Child and Family Services, or some people call it Neighborhood Place. Two different things?
No, they used to be two different things, but now they're one thing.
Okay.
So about 4 years ago, Neighborhood Place of Wailuku merged with Child and Family Service, and we became one agency. We're down in Happy Valley, right at the end, just before you leave town, down on Market Street.
Right.
So now Neighborhood Place is a built-in part of the list of services that the Child and Family Service provides for Maui.
So how would you distinguish the programs that Neighborhood Place has versus Child and Family Services?
Well, whenever I talk about CFS, or Child and Family Service, I always talk about it as an octopus.
Okay.
We're the largest and oldest nonprofit in the state of Hawaii. We've just been around forever, since 1899. And our headquarters, the body of the octopus, is in Ewa. And then there are tentacles that go out to each of the islands, and each tentacle looks a little bit different. The tentacle that comes to Maui, and the Maui, we focus on a number of different areas of work here in our community to service the people and help the families and people of Maui. And those areas are child abuse and neglect, sexual assault, domestic violence. We do some work with at-risk youth, and we have a big focus on helping families stay whole. And Neighborhood Place of Wailuku is really the foundation of what we do to help families. We have a wonderful parenting class called Kamalama. It's Hawaiian values-based. One week we're going to talk about aloha. What does aloha mean in your family? Pono. What is pono for you? How to be a pono parent. How to do those things. So each week we'll talk about that in the Kamalama class. Then we offer family success coaching. So Pastor Greg Delacruz is our family success coach, and we work with the families to, again, help with those same struggles. How do you be a good parent? How do you keep the family together? How do you connect people? So the Neighborhood Place of Wailuku piece of what we do focuses around those kinds of programs. We also run an at-risk youth program. Through that, it's a truancy program for Iao and Maui Wena, and that's after school. And so that's another piece of our Neighborhood Place of Wailuku. All still CFS.
Okay.
And then in our other programs are focused around, again, child abuse and neglect, domestic violence, and sexual assault. And we're a very survivor-focused nonprofit.
So most of your staff is case management type people, or?
It's very mixed.
Okay.
We have a number of case management people, yes, but we also have a very experienced, very wonderful therapy staff that have, I love those folks dearly. And then we have our family service workers. They do supervised visits for families who have had their children removed by the child welfare system. So we do supervised visits with the family service workers. We provide therapy on a bunch of different levels. Particularly in the area of sexual assault, we have crisis intervention workers who work get in there early on when someone calls our 24-hour hotline to help the person through the initial stages of the trauma of sexual assault. We go out into the schools and do prevention and education in the sex assault area. So we have another great member of our staff who goes, if you're a school administrator or somebody out there who's interested in having kids be aware of how to protect themselves better, how to talk about what's safe and not safe, we have somebody to come to your school and train teachers, train parents, train students. So we have a lot of different kinds of folks. And of course, none of it could happen without a wonderful support staff.
Right.
It's there every day making the rest of our jobs okay to do.
Very good, very good. Now, as I look at this, I'm thinking of last week we had Paul Tonneson from the Friends of the Children's Justice Center was on. And of course, they do a lot of things with the kids that are taken away from the family under the abuse and neglect. Who else did we have on that also works with that? There's quite a few agencies that handle different phases of it.
Right.
And so you guys all kind of work together there's an umbrella group, I think, that you guys all have.
Yes, there's an interagency group that works with a number of the nonprofits that work in the whole area of child abuse and neglect, child sexual assault. The Friends of the Children's Justice Center and the Children's Justice Center are two of our favorite. They're major partners for us.
Well, I guess the thing that I was kind of going for was the idea that while you all do work with the same folks, it's different phases of the situation.
Right.
Or different parts of it. So you're not duplicating anything.
We're not duplicating anything. And if you think about it, when you start looking at abuse and neglect with children, it can come in different forms and different varieties. As sad as this is to say, but sometimes it's child abuse and neglect by the parents or a household member. Sometimes it's sexual abuse of a child. So it depends on what the nature of the abuse is. Sometimes substance abuse is the primary problem. Sometimes it's that maybe the parent has a deep psychological problem or difficulty in life. So depending on what is needed by the family, it's going to engage maybe slightly a different mix of nonprofits and state agencies that get involved in a case.
Right, I see that. I can see that. Do you now? How does somebody get referred to you?
It depends on the program.
Okay.
For instance, for us, for our child abuse and neglect work, that's all comes from child welfare services.
Okay.
So CWS gets a call, they determine that there's a problem, their investigators go out and look and make a determination. They see what services the family needs, and then we get a referral from them. Now, in the area of sexual assault, there are two ways. Sometimes if it's intrafamilial sexual assault, so if a member of the family has sexually assaulted someone else, those also come to us from child welfare services. If it's not, we maintain a 24-hour hotline, and anybody who is sexually assaulted at any point in their life can call us for services. So those are oftentimes direct referrals from clients. We also get referrals from Mnpd, Maui Police Department sometimes, from Paul and from the Friends of the Children's Justice Center.
Right.
Or other. We really believe that the other nonprofits in Maui are our partner agencies.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would think that maybe people approach a different agency for this kind of service and they don't provide it. So they would send them straight over to you.
Exactly.
And that's how we all work together and can help with the problems here that we have. Right. At this point, are the children still at home, or have they been taken out of the home when the CFS?
It depends. It depends on the situation. Usually, for us at Child and Family Service, the child has already been removed. For the child abuse and neglect part of our program, for the sexual assault abuse for children, it depends on if there's a protective parent in the home. So one of the things that child welfare services will do is they'll make a determination if there's a protective parent. And if there's a protective parent, they may refer them for services, but they won't necessarily remove the child from the home. Now, for domestic violence, it gets even more different. And for domestic violence, if CWS is involved, so if Child Welfare Services is involved, those people actually go to PACT, to Parents and Children Together, another one of our partner nonprofits here on Maui. But if there's no Child Welfare Services involvement, then they come to us.
I see.
And that's more of a self-referral. I'm in a domestic violence relationship. I really need help. And where can I go to get that help?
Gotcha. So now you're working with all ages, young children to adults.
You know, we start our therapy, depending on the developmental level of the child, therapy can start as young as 3. It usually takes a pretty developed 3-year-old for that to happen. But for instance, in our domestic violence program, we have a night where we do group, but we don't do one group. We have a group for adult survivors, we have a group for teens, we have a group for tweens, we have a group for elementary school kids, and we have childcare. So if you're a parent who can't do services because how am I going to go do it? Because what am I going to do with my kids, right? How am I?
Right.
I'm stuck. No, you're not. We have an answer for you, and that is get a hold of us, come see us, and we'll have a place to put every one of your kids. So you're right. We work with everywhere from keiki to kupuna. You know, it's the whole spectrum. And we try to make sure that we're as family oriented as we can be in working with our families. So that's an important aspect of it. You know, and I'm really happy. I'm so grateful Susie invited me to be here today. You know, last time she was here, I don't know how she does this, but she invited me just before April, and April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And it just so happens that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so it really feels good to be here. Certainly here on Maui, we've been deeply impacted, all of us, by our awareness of domestic violence that we've seen over the last couple of years here, and we're all aware of the trials that are going on, and just what a critical and important issue it is for us. And one of the messages I really want to carry to anybody who's out there who is currently in a domestic violent relationship is that there are people here to help you. There are services out there. Call us at CFS. Even if we're not the ones to provide the services to you, we will get you to the right people. We're deeply committed in the area of domestic violence, and as well as Parents and Children Together, PACT, Women Helping Women, another one of our strong partner agencies that's very involved in the domestic violence field. So if you are out there and you need help, call us. We will get you to the right place.
Don't try to handle it yourself.
You know, domestic violence is a difficult issue. One of the things I usually say when I'm talking to somebody about domestic violence is, has love ever made sense in your life? And nobody I've ever talked to has said yes. You know, everybody has always kind of given me, usually I get a very funny look and they start reflecting back. No, you know, and so, you know, a lot of times we want that simple answer. Well, why can't they just leave? Well, a lot of times the abuser is the breadwinner. Maybe they're paying the rent, you know. The abuser also may be the father of children, and so that makes it complicated. Love is terribly complicated, you know, in all of our lives. So there's not a simple solution. It's usually a very complex place, and oftentimes people who are in domestic violent relationships have been abused at some point in their life too. So there's a real mix of things that come together for an individual that Yeah, having some help's a good idea.
Yeah, yeah, because, I mean, I hear people say that she seems to go from one bad guy to another. You know, you can't tell the difference or something like this. And a lot of times it's because she's come from a home that was like that. That's how she grew up.
Right.
Yeah. Right. On that note, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Aloha from Pacific Source, and thank you for your support over the years. Pacific Source has offered more of what builders and homeowners value most in building materials and cabinet design. We've done this by offering superior customer service and products, as well as by designing kitchens and baths that are intelligent and elegant while staying true to your vision and budget. Visit our showroom in Waikapu in central Maui, where we display a variety of cabinets as well as top-name appliances like Sub-Zero, Wolf, Viking, KitchenAid, and more. We display countertops, tile and wood flooring, and several brands of windows and doors, including Fleetwood multi-slides and La Cantina folding doors. Come in and talk to our designers about making your dreams become a reality. From concept to completion, we really believe our attention to detail and superior service are what sets us apart. Let us show you what we mean. We are a Pacific Source at 515 East Oahe Way in the Consolidated Base Yard in Waikapu, just off Waiko Road. Call us at 986-0380. That's 986-0380, or look us up online at packsource.com.
And we are back. This is Maui Nonprofit Notes, where each week you'll find us talking story with Maui's nonprofit executive directors to find out what they're doing to help those in our community with needs, with issues, with problems, with, well, we could go on and on, but let's not do that. Let's let Danny talk to us instead of me. We're headed into domestic
Violence Awareness Month.
Okay, domestic violence awareness. Okay, all you have to do is pick up the paper every day.
You know, it's certainly true for us now, you know, and it's really brought the issue to the fore for us here on Maui. It's not like domestic violence is a new issue for us here, but I think we've all been made more aware of how critical and really how life-threatening domestic violence can be.
Right. The cases where something happens today maybe doesn't happen again for 6 months or something like that in some homes. We just take that for granted that that's going on, but it doesn't mean a whole lot to us. But when we have front page notoriety on something that's ongoing, that certainly looks like it was a case of that. And I'm not trying to sway the jury in any way, shape, or form, but I mean, it's incredible that I don't know. To me, it's so clear cut.
Well, you know, it seems like it ought to be, but you alluded to something a second ago that was right on, Susie, and that is that there's a cycle to it. You know, and there is actually even a wheel, okay. That everybody who works in domestic violence and around that area in that specialty knows about. And oftentimes an abuser there'll be an event of abuse, and then there'll be remorse, and then there'll be regret, and then they'll be okay, and then they'll be loving, and then they'll be nice, and then they'll get triggered again, and then they become violent again, and another incident happens. So there is a whole cycle to it, and oftentimes what happens is two things. One, you get kind of lured into the good parts, right? And the other piece is that you get used to it. It's Wednesday. You know?
Just be prepared for it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 Oh, God, I'm late getting dinner done.
Could be the trigger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gee.
Exactly.
That's a scary way to live.
It's terrifying for our victims of domestic violence. Yes.
But for many of them, they look at the alternative, and there would be no supper.
Right. If the abuser is the breadwinner, then how are you going to pay the rent next month?
Right.
So it really is a challenge. So we devote October to domestic violence awareness, really trying to focus on providing a time when we can each just keep our awareness on the fact that here on Maui we have many, many people who are currently in domestic violence relationships. The Maui Police Department has a wonderful DV unit. I was very privileged here recently to participate in a training. It was kind of fun. We actually got to kind of we were working with the recruits, and we kind of actually got to give them a hard time and be survivors and abusers of domestic violence.
Wow.
And it was a very fun day, they really appreciated it because they felt like they got to step into that real experience. And Maui Police Department does have a very good unit, well trained, considerate, good officers who are really devoted to working with our domestic violence victims.
Is it true that we get so focused on the guy being the abuser that we forget that women can abuse as well?
You know, I get in trouble for my answer to this one a lot of times, but I'm used to being in trouble, so it's okay. Yes. You know, there are elements within the domestic violence field that want to see it as just a men's problem, but the truth is that it is all of our problem. Do men need to learn not to abuse? Absolutely. Very clear about that. But we also have male victims of domestic violence. Although, you know, and I really feel like the biggest victims, the ones that get the least attention, are the children.
Right.
You know, children are deeply impacted by what happens in a domestic violence relationship. I was so glad when, about 1.5 years ago, the legislature changed the law, and if someone 14 years or younger is a witness to domestic violence within their family, it is automatically a felony.
Wow.
And I thought that was a good move, a strong message from our legislators to really see the seriousness of the impact of domestic violence on our children. So happy to see them do that.
Now that would take a strong person or a strong child to be able to move forward with that, though.
Well, but that is why we have places like the Children's Justice Center where they do the forensic interviews, and it's a safe place. They have lots of stuffed toys. We really try and make it a good environment for the children. And when it's a case of sexual assault, we actually send one of our team over to be there and let the family know what services are available, but also just to help out with the process. So, yeah, it takes a village to do this kind of work. So, but back to domestic violence. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And for those of you who are interested and want to learn more, on October the 15th at Queen Kahumanu Center, the Status of Women's Concerns will be sponsoring an event, and there'll be tables and booths and speakers. They also always have some really good entertainment, so it's kind of an enjoy. You know, you get to go to the mall, you get to hear some good entertainment, and you also get information. I know PACT will be there, we will be there, Women Helping Women will be there, the Status of Women's Concerns office will be there. So there'll be a number of other agencies as well that will be there. So come by, say hi, and hear what each of us has to say. Usually there's speakers. Well, usually I'm one of the speakers. So, so that's one event coming up in October that people can take advantage of to get a little bit more information about the services that are out there.
Now, when somebody say there's just somebody walking through the mall and they hear some of this going on, they come over to see what's happening, they go over to one of the tables and they start talking with somebody, and they take a brochure and they take it home, and it's left laying someplace at home, and the abuser in the household sees it.
Don't do that. No, you have to be really, when you work in the area of domestic violence, this is one of the strange little things you get used to doing is lethality assessments. Like, how dangerous really is this situation? How potentially violent, or, even could someone end up killed?
Right.
You know, so you have to make that kind of assessment every time you work with somebody in the area of domestic violence. And that's a regular part of what any of the nonprofits that work with this do.
Right. So the thing to do would be to take that phone number and make that call someplace away from the house or whatever,
Yes.
or any ears that might be listening, and make an appointment and go talk to them about what's going on and go from there.
Yeah, it's like when we call, we don't, we just say, hi, this is,
Yeah.
this is Danny. Yeah, just thought I'd, check in with you, or, you try and keep it really generalized. And when you get a message from somebody, you always really want to know, how safe is your situation? Is it okay to call back?
Right.
And some people will tell you, no, don't call my cell phone, because we never, you never know who picks up a cell phone.
That's true. That's true.
So-
Now, does it always escalate, or can it be the same for years and years and years?
I've spent about 35 years in this field, and if there's a variation, you will find it. I've seen ones where it stayed just awful for a really long time and didn't escalate beyond just awful. And so it doesn't necessarily escalate, but it still is really destructive.
Yeah.
And it's just, as I said before, it's really destructive to the whole family.
Yeah, I was going to say, because in that situation, the kids are growing up with this, and because mom and dad stayed together, it's like, okay, that's life. That's what we've got to look forward to.
It's normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that perhaps is the one thing that should spark the person who's being abused into doing something about it, what this effect this is having on their children.
The saddest thing I see sometimes is when you see a young child, and I'm going to relate to gender here, but I've seen young boys suddenly turn and treat their mothers like the abuser.
Oh my gosh.
And it's just the saddest thing to watch that happen.
Because she lets him do it.
It's the lesson learned.
Interesting. Now, would that relate with, do they sometimes do that, take that same attitude towards their sisters?
Their sisters, friends, schoolmates, yeah.
Interesting.
And then you'll see other kids curl up inside themselves and not be able to come out from it. So huge impact.
Sad on both
children.
sides.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow, there's no winning in that situation.
There really isn't, Susie. It's a lose-lose, and I do hope. I a moment ago kind of spoke to the survivors out there, but I also want to speak to anyone out there who is an abuser. There is help for you too, and you don't have to stay in that cycle of violence. Nobody gains from it.
That's a good point. We often just tend to forget the abuser and just say he needs to go to jail or whatever, and But yeah, if he can be rehabilitated,
Yeah.
Or she, whichever is the abuser, that could turn the whole family around.
There are alternatives to violence programs out there. So
That's great.
Yeah, and so there's help on both sides here.
Gotcha,
And,
gotcha,
the
yeah.
ultimate goal would be to get families back together. The current state program for domestic violence is Domestic Violence Support Services for Families. That's what it's
Interesting.
called.
Can't say it any more clearly than that.
Yeah. So,
Interesting.
and that's a program that PACT has, and like I said, it is focused on those who have child welfare services involvement. But
Right.
but if you don't have CWS involvement, come see us at Child and Family Service. And Cole Sasaoka is our main point of contact person for our DV program, our domestic violence program, and she's wonderful.
And the phone number to call is?
So our main, I want to give two
Sure.
phone numbers. Our main office number, which you can get in contact with us about anything, is 877-6888. So that's 877-6888. But then for anything that's sexual assault related, and I still think, I really do truly believe that 90% of the people who are in domestic violence relationships are probably in relationships that involve sexual abuse as well. The two don't come separately.
Interesting.
For that line, and this is a 24-hour hotline, it's 873-8624. So that's 873-8624. If you happen to be listening on Molokai, it's 213-5522. So Call the hotline. Our hotline worker's only been doing it for 15 years, so she knows a few things.
She probably isn't anything she hasn't heard.
Not that I could imagine, probably. And I have a pretty vivid imagination.
Gotcha. Danny, as always, it's a pleasure having you on the show. Half hour just isn't long enough.
It never is it, Susan?
It isn't. It isn't. Not when we're talking about this subject. I mean, because this subject is probably as old as time.
Yes.
And will continue, and in just how we face it, that's where the changes can come from.
That's where how Maui can grow, how we become a stronger community and really honor our families.
Well, thanks, Danny, for what you do, and thanks to Child and Family Services for what they do. I can't imagine how bad things would be without you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Have a great day.
All right, and you feel better soon.
Oh, boy, thank you. I'm seconding that one. And third and fourth, and anything I can add to that one, because I'm not the kind of person that gets sick, and I'm not happy as a sick person. So we're going to shift gears here, and we're going to talk story with Lisa Vardy, who's the executive director of the Maui Memorial Medical Center Foundation.
You got it right.
Hey,
you always do.
And I didn't have any notes on that one. It's buried in the stack someplace. So how are things over at the foundation?
Things are challenging right now at the hospital and at the foundation, but we're all trying to stay positive and keep moving forward.
I was so intrigued with Wes Lowe, who's my buddy.
I remember
from years ago, and he was on the show here with us one time a couple years ago. That he was going to try to stick with him and get this transition happening after all the hard work he's put in.
Yeah.
And a couple weeks ago, I was at the Hale Makua fundraiser, and it was a farewell to Tony Krieg for his 30-some years of service over there. And I'm sitting there at my table, and everybody's having a good time, and I'm just thinking to myself, who takes the place of somebody like Tony Krieg?
Yeah.
And I couldn't put a face to it, And I'm thinking, is this one of those where they have to go outside of the island to find somebody, or even outside of the state? Because that's a specialized kind of situation there. And then it wasn't a week later that they announced that Wes was going to leave the hospital and take this job. And I think, oh, Wes, what are you doing? And I'm thinking, he couldn't, he had to take it.
Yeah.
This is his thing. And if he didn't take this job, there's not another job like that here that would test his skills and abilities.
Yeah.
And so timing is what it's all about. And you got to go when you can, when you can fill it.
Yeah, and Hale Makua is very lucky to have Wes, I think. I'm excited for them. He's going to do great things for Hale Makua, and I'm very sad to see him leave the hospital. But you're right, he has to go, and I know there's nothing more he would have liked than to see the whole transition through to the end. But it's been dragging on too long.
Is there going to be an end?
I hope so.
I'm
We're all hanging on to
I'm
that.
starting to hear that from people.
For
it's like, okay, so it was supposed to be July, and then it was going to be October, and now we're into July of next year. And the basis for that, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that at that point all the union contracts expire. And so Kaiser Permanente is not going to be stuck with all those contracts and having to find money to pay out what was needed for the benefits that were due at the time of takeover, I guess is what it was hinging on. But the bottom line is that's a long way off.
It is a very long way off, and it's very troubling. There's agreements that still need to be signed between the state and the unions that have not been signed yet. And there seems to be no progress on that. So obviously Kaiser can't come in until these state and union issues are resolved, and there's just no information forthcoming on the status of any of these. So it's very frustrating. No, the hospital, we don't get information. Kaiser doesn't get information. It's like a vacuum. Nobody knows what's happening.
Well, see, I'm an eternal optimist. I think that one of these days there's going to be a phone call
We're
from
all
whoever
waiting
to
for the
whoever
call.
saying, okay, everything is signed, we're all settled. how quick can you come in? Can you come in before July 1 and get this thing moving? Could that happen?
I think it could happen. That would ideally be the best thing that could happen. And Kaiser has still, reinforced their commitment to Maui and to the hospital. So they've said they're still committed. They still want to help, but they can't be in this process of delay,
Right.
and then they don't know. They have other hospitals that they're running.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. And I don't know, I maybe that's very optimistic on my part, or more so than usual, but I don't know, things like that do happen once in a while.
They do.
And wouldn't that be wonderful? And I got Gary, by the way, Gary's back from his 3-week leave that he was on. Thank you, Gary, for coming back to us. We missed you.
No problem.
We had Jack, and he's okay, but he's not Gary.
Was he adequate?
Huh?
Was he adequate?
Yeah, he's
all right.
Yeah. He got us started on time and ended us on time, and yeah. And matter of fact, it was really cool that first day you were gone, we had somebody from Red Cross here, and they were talking about the emergencies that we'd had a few weeks before from the hurricanes and stuff, and they were talking. Oh, and then the fire, and they were talking about the lack of information that was coming across on the airwaves, and he's sitting over there and he's getting more and more agitated through this whole conversation. Finally, he grabbed the microphone closest to him and he says, I got to say something. He said, we were on the air giving updates every, I don't know what it was, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, something. He said, I was here at the station that whole time, and so was John, the owner. And he said, I think we were the only ones doing that. And so we kind of concluded that there has to be more communication to the public which stations to listen to during a time like that. So it was kind of interesting, but he was right there. He stood up for the station.
All right.
Yeah, so we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back.
Aloha from Pacific Source, and thank you for your support over the years. Pacific Source has offered more of what builders and homeowners value most in building materials and cabinet design. We've done this by offering superior customer service and products, as well as by designing kitchens and baths that are intelligent and elegant while staying true to your vision and budget. Visit our showroom in Waikapu in central Maui, where we display a variety of cabinets as well as top-name appliances like Sub-Zero, Wolf, Viking, KitchenAid, and more. We display countertops, tile and wood flooring, and several brands of windows and doors, including Fleetwood multi-slides and La Cantina folding doors. Come in and talk to our designers about making your dreams become a reality. From concept to completion, we really believe our attention to detail and superior service are what sets us apart. Let us show you what we mean. We are a Pacific Source at 515 East Oahe Way in the Consolidated Base Yard in Waikapu, just off Waiko Road. Call us at 986-0380. That's 986-0380, or look us up online at packsource.com.
And we are back. This is Maui Nonprofit Notes, where each week you hear us talking story. Hello, whatever that is. Talking story about what's happening with our nonprofit agencies and how they're making things on Maui better for our citizens. And the people that we work with are such a variety. Earlier on the show, we had Danny Riggs from Child and Family Services talking about domestic abuse and so on and so forth. And then we shifted gears at the halftime here, and we're talking with Lisa Varde, who's the executive director of the Maui Memorial Medical Centers Foundation. And, of course, we hear so much in the news about the hospital, Maui Memorial Medical Center, and the deal that was made with Kaiser Permanente to take it over and run it, and then all the gaps that didn't get filled in that contract, I guess is probably the best way to say it. And so it hasn't happened yet. But, I mean, that's got to be tough. I know that the issue was a lot of the people who've been there a while who were hired under these labor union contracts and what was going to happen to them. Were there some of them that were going to be called back in to work?
Yeah, most of them, it was like 90-something% of hospital employees had accepted a job offer with Kaiser. So it was a huge percent, it was the majority of the hospital workers that had accepted positions with Kaiser.
So the idea that they were trying to protect somebody, it wasn't protecting them to keep a job. I guess there was some long-range financial pieces to it, though.
Yeah.
That once they pulled out, once they weren't part of the state's labor unions, salary might change, benefits might change,
Yeah.
more long-term kinds of things. But yeah, I mean, I can't see these people saying no to working at the hospital if that's their life.
And I think most of the people that are still there are really committed, and they want to be there, and they want to help the hospital,
Right.
be the best it can be. That's who's still there. A lot of people have left. Lots of people have left.
Okay, now, were these people that originally were going to stay that have left? Or are we talking?
Some are, yeah, you're right. Some of them have, but then they're seeing how long this process is just getting dragged on, and they found jobs elsewhere that are more stable.
Oh, I see. So they were looking at a situation where they had jobs, but it could be cut
Yeah.
at any
Nobody
time.
knows.
Okay. Interesting. So give me your insight. Would they come right back if everything got fixed?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean,
That's a
because,
good question.
I mean, everything I know about the hospital has been great. I've been over there for a couple of knee surgeries and things, and I couldn't ask for better service, care, whatever you call it. And I wouldn't think, if somebody said, "Do you want to have it here or over in Oahu?" I would say here.
Yeah. Why would you want to travel and take all that expense and
Right, and be away from everybody. But are we in a situation where some things cannot be done because we've lost the staff that's needed to provide the services?
Yes. Yes.
So
Definitely.
what kinds of things would we normally expect to have done at the hospital that maybe can't be done?
It's more specialty things.
Okay.
Like maybe knee surgery, orthopedics. It's more of the specialty areas that we're short staffed.
We were probably short in the
we
beginning.
were short before.
Yeah.
There was always. I think we talked about this before. There's always been a shortage of physicians, especially specialty physicians.
Right.
And with the uncertainty, it's very hard to recruit to get everybody up to speed.
Right.
And to be fully staffed, because people don't want to come here in this situation where it's so many
chance.
unknowns
Yeah.
of what's going on.
So has it affected the outpatient clinic faculty?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I mean, because they rely on the hospital for their surgeries, and that's most of them. Their patients do end up with some surgery. And I was thinking about that the other day, and I thought, back many years ago, my dad worked for a nonprofit agency that ran, I don't know, something like 50 hospitals in the Midwest, North Dakota, South Dakota, Colorado, Iowa, Minnesota, in that whole area, basically out in the country. And they couldn't get doctors to come to the country because they all wanted to be in the city where all the services were. And so his job was to go and talk to somebody who might be interested and get them to find out, recruit them for wherever. And at that time, he had the best success with people from Canada because it was reasonably close to Canada, for one thing. But they wanted to get out of the system up there and come down and see what it was like in the States. And I think about here, this is kind of the same kind of thing we're going through here. Would you come here? Well, I don't know. Not right now.
Yeah.
If something changes in the next, we're looking at 10 months away, maybe.
Yeah.
But you
But
can't.
that's a long time to wait.
Yeah. I mean, people need services.
Yeah, and Kaiser had already recruited people and started hiring people, and then all these lawsuits and injunctions and things happened, so they've just got these people on standby, and they can't just keep their lives on hold for maybe a job.
Right.
They've
And
got
they can't come to work because Kaiser's not there. Interesting. Ooh, that sounds like a nasty nest to step in. And I'm sure that Kaiser is just as upset about this whole thing as anybody.
They are. They really are. They were ready to go. They've invested tens of millions of dollars already on this project that are just kind of withering right now.
So now, how will the focus of the foundation change, if at all, under Kaiser?
The foundation will still remain because we're our own independent nonprofit organization, and our mission is just to support the hospital. So when Kaiser comes in, they will assume management of the operations. So the state will still own the facilities, the state will still own the property and everything, but Kaiser will just be the managing operator. So there will still, the hospital will always have needs. There's always new equipment, there's always new services, there's always, our community is growing. The hospital will always have needs, and the foundation is there to fill in the gaps. And a lot of what we do is to purchase equipment that may not have been in the hospital's budget, but is needed. That's a big part of what we do.
And you buy some pretty expensive stuff.
Yeah, we
And,
do.
I was looking through some of these items, and I'm going, how do you raise that much money?
Yeah. It's a challenge. It's very hard. But all of our funds that we have at the foundation are raised from our community, from the people of Maui. So that's how we're able to exist, and that's how we're able to help improve our hospital, which is here for everybody.
And I also noticed there's quite a few endowments that people have created, either doctors who've been serving there or patients who have had great success and want to make sure that this continues for other folks. And those, I would imagine, have significant funds flowing through them.
We do have a number of great endowments, and a good number of them are from people who have passed away, and they were grateful for the care that they received at the hospital, so they've left a gift in their estate planning. So those are a wonderful gifts to receive.
Those are the kind that keep on giving, because you can't take the principal out; you just get the interest when you need it.
Yes,
That's great. So now you have fundraisers from time to time to bring in that extra money that you need. Do we have one coming up?
we do.
Yeah.
In October, we were talking about October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I didn't know that, but October is also Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So we are partnering with Queen Ka'ahumanu Center on a brand new event, and it's called Kokua for Coconuts. And it's a walk through Kahumanu Center. It's a fundraising walk that will raise awareness, and it'll also raise funds for the foundation's breast cancer screening program. So one of our areas that we help with is with patient assistance. And so one of our programs is to help to fund mammograms and ultrasounds for Maui women who are not able to afford them, or they don't have insurance, they're underinsured, they can't even afford the copay maybe. So we partner with Malama Ikeola Health Center, and they refer patients to us who are in need of a mammogram. They're at risk, they've got a lump, they have something bad, but they're not able to fit them into any other program. So we're sort of a last resort for these women who need help.
Interesting. So this is a walk, not a
Yes.
run. It's a walk.
It's a walk.
Basically, the walk is from 9 to 10 a.m. Registration starts at 8, and it's a walk around the center. That's before the stores open. Okay.
Yeah, it's October 1st. We'll have entertainment and prizes, and it's really meant to be for the entire family. So we want moms to bring their kids in strollers. We want kapuna to bring their walkers, bring their wheelchairs. It's not a 5K run. It's a walk through the mall with different stations and different prizes, and you'll get different goodies, and it's just going to be a fun morning. And we're asking people to collect pledges. We have a walker form. You just need a minimum of $35 donation, and you will get a t-shirt and be entered into this super fun walk.
Cool. This is the first time?
Yes, this is the first year, and we'd like to make it an annual event.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really fun. We're hoping to have at least 200 walkers.
Interesting. Now, the foundation itself, you've got what, 3 employees, and then the foundation. How does somebody? Are you do people become members of the foundation?
Yes.
Or how does that work?
Yes, they can become donors, and
Okay.
we do have a good number of generous people who give every year. Just unrestricted gifts.
Okay.
And that's really how we're able to do the work that we do and buy equipment and help with these patient assistance programs that we have.
Okay, so you become a member by donating, not by dues or anything like that. Interesting. That's great. You must have a heck of a mailing list.
We've got a pretty good mailing list.
I would think so. Gosh. The foundation's been around a long time.
Almost 20 years
Okay.
now, since
Wow.
97.
And you've been there now for what, 4?
I've been there for about 5 years.
5 years? Yeah. Cool. So for those of you who don't have anything else to do, well, I shouldn't say that. For those of you who don't have anything more important to do, then make this walk Kokua for coconuts. Cocoa nuts. I'm sure there's a story behind that name. I kind of get the picture here a little bit, but you got to kind of go and see. A fundraising walk to support Maui Memorial Medical Center's Foundation Breast Cancer Screening Program. Lisa, always a pleasure having you here with us.
Thank you.
And maybe next time we talk, things will be settled and
Hope so. We'll have better news. I
yeah,
hope.
wouldn't that be great? Boy, I think, everybody was cautious about this whole thing to start with. And then when it was signed, it was like, oh, it's a done deal. Here we go. Then
Yep.
stop, start.
Yeah.
So we hope that before the new year, things get looking
hope
better.
So. I hope so.
Great. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Susie.
Maui Nonprofit Notes is sponsored as a community service by Pacific Source, the builder's choice. Give Paul and his staff a call at 986-0380 or stop by their showroom in the Waikapu Bayshard on East Oahe Way to see how they can help you with your building project. The Maui Nonprofit Directors Association's mission is to provide personal and professional support to nonprofit executive directors, their organizations, and the community of Maui. Please visit our website at mauinonprofit.org for a list of member agencies. And if you see one listed there that you'd like to get involved with, go to their website and check them out. Today we visited with the, who did we visit with? Child and Family Services, right? That's right, that's who it was. Danny Riggs from Child and Family Services, and with Lisa Vardy from the Maui Memorial Medical Center Foundation, and found out what they are up to. We want to thank everybody for tuning in, and don't forget to join us again next week, right here, same time, same place, Wednesday at noon, KAOI Radio, 1110 AM, 96.7 FM, 96.5 FM on the west side, when we'll be featuring representatives of 2 other member agencies of the Maui Nonprofit Directors Association. Until then, I'm Susie Tiemann, Executive Director of Lokahi Pacific and host for Maui Nonprofit Notes. Thank you for joining us today. Have a great week, everyone. Aloha.